This is a story that involves many adventures and personal struggles with the themes of man versus self. The journey begins with a young man named Matthew. He finds himself looking at his shelf for a video game to review for his YouTube channel. He finds something very dark that lurks deep inside of the shelf. He puts the game into his Xbox and begins his journey. My dear friend, I have faith in you. Let the Lord give you the strength to make your way through this quest. Castlevania. I remember loving the hell out of this franchise, especially with Symphony of the Night being one of my all-time favorite games. That game is a literal fucking masterpiece! Anyways, Castlevania was a hard-ass 2D platformer way back in the day, and that took the Halloween monsters and spooky shit and made it its gimmick. You took control of a member of this clan called the Belmont family, going around through all kinds of hell to reach the great vampire Dracula. Yeah, this shit was a classic back in the day. Spawned some sequels that went up and down in quality. The series was crafted by one of the legendary game developing companies, Konami, in 1986. And unfortunately, Konami could not raise the franchise very well throughout the years. I mean, we did get Symphony of the Night, which is absolutely nutty, and we got more Metroidvania-style games. And then the 7th generation came out for gaming, and we were reintroduced to this new improved Castlevania. Well, quote-unquote improved. This was supposed to be a reboot of some kind, delving into the origins of the series' most beloved villain, Dracula. But instead of it being Dracula, he is this man named Gabriel Belmont. Okay, so I understand this game has sort of a cult following with its fans who seem to defend it at any cost, and I was a fan of this game back in the day when I played it when I was a kid, so, but yeah, no. Upon further inspection, this game is really rough. Anyways, let's get it on. So this is a very story-driven game, and I may have to go in depth into it since it's very cinematic. Not to mention Kojima Productions had a great influence in the development of the game. Thank you, Kojima! Oh, I love you so much! Fuck you! Anyways, so the overall story is essentially, there are these 3 Lords of Shadows, or some kind of demonic, ghostly beings that are trying to wipe out all of mankind. And these merry men of God, called the Brotherhood of Light, are the ones who will be doing the saving of the day. Gabriel Belmont is one of the brothers, and his goal is to destroy Lords of Shadow, resurrect his dead wife, and bring peace to the land. Throughout the story, you meet this telepathic bitch with a knight in shining armor. Then you meet Zobek, and he is your ally for a great deal of your journey. A good chunk of the game's story is told through narration of a book, voiced by Patrick Stewart. It's essentially, I guess, like the character Zobek, like, retelling the story in his perspective, I guess. And, you know, the narration is really cool until you realize that he's saying the same goddamn thing over and over and over again in slightly different ways. So Gabriel is traveling far and wide to defeat this darkness inside of him and the evil that lurks on the outside as well. He moves on to fight colossi, demons, werewolves, vampire bitches, lycans, and even Satan himself. This game's story is pretty much an epic one, with a long journey with all kinds of different unique locations you travel through. So to better understand the story and my personal gripes with it, let me break down the lore real quick. So these 3 holy Brotherhood of Light motherfuckers decided to ascend to heaven and take their spirits upwards as well, while leaving their evil physical form behind. Gabriel is tasked to killing these 3 evil versions left behind. And the kicker is that once he kills the evil side of these spirits, also the angel versions of them die as well. So he essentially has to sort of betray the Brotherhood of Light and also, like, kill these demons to save mankind. It's a whole fucking, it's a whole thing. There's also this mask that is supposedly able to bring back this magical power of resurrection or some bullshit that Gabriel wants to use to bring back his dead wife, who was murdered by a monster that was commanded by the Lords of Shadows. Okay, got that? Alright, so my main gripe with the story is the constant plot twist and strange continuity errors. Also, the character of Gabriel Belmont. Look, I like Gabriel, and I really want to love him, but unfortunately for him, he does not really get a lot of development throughout the story that feels organic, or feels like it is a natural development. And what I mean by that is that the story pushes this narrative that Gabriel is a conflicted man with his morals, sort of being on the edge of snapping and becoming evil. Now, that would be a really interesting idea. However, we never really see him struggle with this on screen. In fact, 90% of this story is told through Patrick Stewart's narration. You know the phrase, show, don't tell? Well, this game does a lot of telling and not enough showing. The beginning portion does well to establish Gabriel as a sort of a stoic hero. And, it really does show him, sort of like, like holding in his emotions and focusing on his mission, especially with him, sitting at the fireplace and all this, really cool shit. But later on, he sort of doesn't have much of a personality. Nothing that really distinguishes him from other protagonists I've seen. He just seems like an edgelord that can be summarized by a 3 Days Grace song. Now, if you're into that type of character, that's totally fine. God knows when I was in high school, Sasuke Uchiha used to be one of my favorite anime characters of all time. But, here's the thing, though, throughout the game, the only people that he kills are monsters, demons, and ghouls and trolls. Now, his literal goal is to defend humanity and protect the lives of the innocent. And he has more of a Superman dynamic than rather an anti-hero, per se, I guess. And so this whole idea that he has a twisted dark side, sort of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation, is ultimately weak because of the lack of screen time, seeing him actually do fucked up shit. Also, the ending of the game has 5 different plot twists and it feels rushed. Once Gabriel makes his way to the end of his journey, he finds out that Zobek, old boy that was helping him, was actually one of the Lords of Shadows, and his evil side has corrupted him to essentially kill his wife and the telepath bitch. Okay, so how am I to believe that Gabriel is actually an evil person if he was actually being corrupted and brainwashed into killing the people that he cares about? This doesn't make any sense. How can you make the argument that he is an awful person deep down inside if he's actually, doing good things, but he was just mind controlled to do so? That doesn't make any fucking sense. Anyways, so we think we're going to have this really emotional fight with the man who betrays you and creates this whole fucked up situation for you, for your life, right? But no, he gets shafted by Satan and he appears to set evil Zobek on fire. Then he appears to kill him, but then we'll get to that later, I guess. It's fucking... Also, Satan just looks like Ozzy Osbourne and Sephiroth had a weird love child. So Satan appears and wants Gabriel to lose faith in God and join the dark side. But Gabriel doesn't fall into temptation, and they clash, because Gabriel is an alpha male. Gabriel ends up damning him back to hell, and honestly, I feel like the bits and dialogue that they have with each other is really good and dope. But it feels like, everything that happens here just kind of comes out of nowhere and just kind of shoehorned in. There was no real build up to this moment. Also, the game doesn't exactly establish its villains or give us really any time to either like them or hate them or really even care about them. You see, even to the extent of enjoying their presence. Now, I understand that Castlevania as a series was never really one to, flesh out villains. I mean, God knows Dracula has been fleshed out 1,000 times throughout the entire fucking series. But the thing is that if you're trying to tell a story, this big, epic, cinematic story, give us something to work with when it comes to the villains. The villains don't particularly have this, sense of, oh, cool, they're there. They're more so along the lines of, oh, cool, next boss I get to kill. Oh, well. Does that make sense? I guess. I don't know. It just felt kind of shoehorned in and it just wasn't well organized. But what I do appreciate about Gabriel is that he has the classic heroic stoic nature, and it coincides with his religious nature in him, and it could actually make him more appealing, which I thought was awesome, and honestly, I think it should have stayed that way, and it would have made more sense narratively. Matthew's faith in God has slowly dwindled as he further continues on through his journey. The frequent plot twists, the inconsistent lore is crushing his psyche. He has lost all sense of hope for his happiness. His fond memories of playing the game as a child are just pathetic attempts to rekindle his old love for the game, never being able to recapture the same feeling of wonder and genuine sense of fun. As he is much older now and views gaming a different way. My dear brother, It will be alright. Perhaps the past should remain in the past, as it no longer matters. We should move on to the future as God would want us to. Have faith, my dear friend. I know there is still a glimmer of hope deep inside, but you must find it on your own. So the post-credits of the game shows up, and it appears that Gabriel is now Dracula, and Zobek is alive. Ha! But if he's a Lord of Shadow, and, like, the one side is supposed to die, and then the other side dies, like, shouldn't he not be alive or something? Or, I don't know, or maybe you should follow your own fucking continuity, or maybe explain why this situation is different compared to the other characters, but whatever. I mean, I know this is literally just a teaser for the second game that was set to come out, but still, it's like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Also, like, the Lords of Shadow story itself is pretty much its own separate continuity from the actual other Castlevania continuity, even though the Castlevania continuity is already fucking complicated as it is, because okay, look, I have read so many forums and threads online on Reddit, fucking GameFAQs, everything I could find, and it seems like a lot of people just are having a hard time grasping the continuity of this franchise, because the franchise is so weird and wonky and sort of inconsistent. It is just, Okay, so as far as the story goes, it's got a lot of great moments. There's a lot of dope-ass scenes and cinematic shots of Gabriel doing a lot of cool shit. However, when it comes to story, it really, really, really falls apart in the later half of the game. And the first part of the game, too, especially from, like, Chapter 1 to, like, 5, it is so goddamn slow. I mean, Chapter 2 was such a slog of a story portion of it. You had, like, 12 levels within that chapter, and all the other fucking, like, chapters have, like, maybe 4 or 5 levels, or maybe even, like, 4 levels max. But it's like, why is this chapter so fucking long? Like, it feels like it's just nothing but padding, especially the gameplay just doesn't complement the story very well either. It's just, it feels like a sluggish filler, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like they're just trying to pad out the runtime. Maybe that's what they were doing. I don't know. But, you know, anyways. So, I digress on the story. The story feels like it's all flash and no real substance. It's very lengthy and just drags on. As Matthew finds himself searching for something to enjoy about the story of the game, he struggles with various pieces of gameplay. Clunky controls, long-winded platforming, the ridiculous climbing, the god-forsaken boss fights that require a lengthy amount of climbing as its gimmick. He tries so hard to enjoy the game, but is ultimately losing his sanity with how boring it really is, convincing himself that the main character is actually really cool, but just a 2010 edgelord. He is not moved by the narrative, nor is he feeling any connection to the characters. Rather, the opposite. My dear friend, carry on through your journey. This is only the tip of the iceberg. May God carry you forward on the path of truth and honesty for how you really feel about this game. So the overall gameplay is actually another roller coaster that I have to bear through. Because, oh boy, when it's high, but when it's low, I want to go play in a fucking highway. Anyways, so the gameplay is can be best described as a God of War cross with Devil May Cry. Yeah, and when I say cross, I mean literally the same fucking game. Like, almost exactly the same. Also, not to mention the puzzle bullshit and the fixed camera angles, wacky, hack and slash gameplay. Yeah, it's literally just God of War. Now, that doesn't have to be a bad thing, but the only thing that it does to distinguish itself from the rest of the God of War clones and shit is the Castlevania aesthetic on top of it. Now, honestly, it does nail that. The gothic horror element and environments, the music are all extremely well done. It is fucking beautiful. It's captivating. The graphics look really good for the time it came out, and it was so beautiful. But here's the thing. Now, something may look really nice, but then when you really dig deep into it and start, taking your shovel and dig all the fucking, the pretty roses out, you find something that's not so lovely. Now, when it comes to capturing the feel of gameplay, of bringing the 2D platforming from the original Castlevania games to the third dimension, honestly, I think it does a pretty good job with it. And I feel like it makes sense to put Castlevania in this God of War style, since the gameplay was very linear and it went from a level-to-level basis. This game captures that very well and makes the vibe of Castlevania feel more real. Now, how does the game actually play, though, and feel? Well, you got the classic whip that the Belmonts use, and that takes forever to kill enemies, so that's fine, I guess. And I would say that the game shines mostly in combat situations. Like, the game gives you a lot of tools to work with, and you got your items to throw at enemies, combo strings, magic system. You got a red one and a blue one, and then the red one deals more damage when you hit an enemy, and then the blue one heals you as you attack enemies, which I find a very unique way of gaining health, actually. I never find that, often in games. And I guess finding a pork chop in the walls weren't in the cards for this title. You can punch, grab monsters, brutally murder them. You also got this crystal that summons a sexy demon skank with titties. Wait, hold on. You mean to tell me there's titties in my Castlevania game? Yes! Oh! Okay, never mind. This is the best game ever made. Traversing the world and platforming just doesn't feel right in this game, especially with how clunky Gabriel's movements feel. With just moving around in general, not to mention the constant climbing. Oh my god, the sheer amount of climbing you do in this game. It is such a pace breaker. It makes me dread any obstacle course. It takes fucking forever to get through these things, and then they make it a whole ass gimmick for some of the boss fights. I would hardly consider them fights, because we're not playing Castlevania anymore. We are playing Shadows of the Colossus. I swear to God, these bosses are so asinine and feel so boring. They require a level of patience that was dwindling over time. Also, when you climb them, you're pretty much holding the right trigger the entire time, because for every goddamn second you move, they're constantly shaking. They're doing the rump shaker, moving their whole bodies to get you off their ass. God, fuck these bosses, dude. The other boss fights are not that bad, and they're actually kind of fun, except for Satan's boss fight at the end. You see, he has this really interesting gimmick where it requires you to, use magic, right? Like you have to switch off your magic, like throughout this obstacle course where you essentially have to go red, blue, or blue, red, and you have to do it at like super precise timing, and if you fuck it up, you have to essentially redo the fight, and it's really ass, and it's stupid, and I don't like it. And also, Satan's boss fight isn't even that hard. It's just this bullshit right here. Also, the puzzles are alright. I'm not really a big fan of them personally, to be honest. Most of the time, I'm not even looking at them the right way, and I end up feeling like an idiot when I find out how to solve them. So, yeah, I guess that's just a me problem. You can also collect these gems and scrolls from dead guys that are just lying around throughout the levels. The gems can also help you reach your extended warranty on your health and magic. That's nice. So that's pretty much it, honestly. The game does have a very big pacing issue, and it feels longer than it needs to be, especially with Chapter 2. The game looks super pretty, and it looks really cool, but the overall gameplay is just... As Matthew has finished the game, he reflects on his experience by throwing the game into a lake for it to never be seen again by mankind, as it does not deserve the right to be held in such hands. Matthew finally rests in peace, knowing that the chapter of his life has finally concluded. His conclusion... the game was mid as fuck anyways.